The Atlantic crossing costs of equipping my boat to make this voyage from the English Channel to the Caribbean has been exercising my mind these last days. The problem of using a cargo ship with my Beneteau 323 Golden Haze on the deck along with a load of other boats out of Southampton or La Rochelle to the Caribbean has risen steeply. I have decided to revisit the costs involving equipping Golden Haze to a safe standard to make the 16 or 17 day crossing to Martinique on her own bottom. The situation with the two main carriers of boats on the decks of cargo ships has changed because of the shortage of shipping worldwide caused by the entire world coming out of the COVID pandemic. The two principal companies are Peter & May, who are UK-based out of Southampton, and they've been chartering ships to make this crossing to the Caribbean for decades, and Seven Star, who are part of the DYT group, who have that big float-on, float-off super yacht transporter that operates mainly out of the Mediterranean. Both Peters & May and Seven Star were, before COVID, quoting me around £8,000 for transporting Golden Haze to the Caribbean from Southampton. Both companies eventually cancelled their sailings for lack of clients, which meant my plans to ship Golden Haze went out the window, or down the drain, or whatever, overboard. What's worse is that they're both now quoting for this coming winter £12,000 for the same voyage, Southampton to the Caribbean or Florida. So clearly I need to reconsider sailing her across myself as a serious option. Now what follows applies to Golden Haze, and of course there are other boats that may already have some of the equipment I feel I need to buy for this voyage. In preparation for positioning Golden Haze in Martinique, I've already purchased a bimini, which I've now taken off and stowed away for the winter, and I bought the Navionics Chart 908, which covers Florida to Trinidad. I'm going to buy anyway this summer a new dinghy, outboard and life raft. Those are the only extra items that I need to cruise happily around the Caribbean islands for the next few years. The vast majority of boats out there are equipped just like ours in UK waters, with perhaps the exception of the all-essential bimini in those sunny climes. For my summer cruise this year, I'm going to leave my home port of Boulogne-sur-Mer in northern France and whiz across to New Haven, where I'll probably haul and put on a couple of coats of Hempel Cruiser anti-fouling. That's what I've been using for the last years in various places around the world, and I found it more efficacious than any other. Well, it keeps my bottom clean. I'll need to change the anodes, and then before heading out to Port Solent in Portsmouth Harbour and Marine Superstore, from whom I'm going to buy a new dinghy, a 2-horsepower Suzuki outboard and a 4-man life raft, all of which are far more expensive to buy in France and far more expensive in the Caribbean. I'll then head out for the lovely Beaulieu River, which I used to visit when I first started sailing out of my top moorings on the Hamble a few decades ago. I used to think it was the most lovely and interesting destination in the whole of the Solent area. Just before COVID struck, I was involved in making a Doctor Who documentary for the BBC, and Rafe Montague turned up, who owns the marina there. He's an ardent Who fan, and I said I would make a short sailing into Beaulieu to go along with my other sailing into videos. Up to now, they've all been about northern France, and I've covered most of the French ports between Boulogne and Cherbourg. From the beautiful Beaulieu River, I'll head for Cherbourg and then the Channel Islands, where in Guernsey, in St. Peter Port, it should be possible to have a new wind vane self-steering gear sent VAT-free and installed by the boatyard there. The pretty essential self-steering equipment is a considerable financial investment. Sadly, having used it for the Atlantic crossing, I don't think I'll ever use it again. And the same would be true of the SSB. And that's partly what's motivated me to look at the minimum money I need in order to equip my Beneteau 323 for this transatlantic. To be fair, I think bigger boats possibly need less equipment as they carry a larger crew and go faster. But anyway, here's my equipment list. Self-steering equipment, essential with a small crew. Solar panels, got to create enough amps to power electronics and nav lights. Extra battery, long-range comms. I need some method of getting weather forecasts, and in the worst-case scenario, telling someone I've screwed up. Navionics, chart from the English Channel to the Cape Verdes, standalone GPS. On ocean passages, I don't run the chart plotter. No point, as there's only sea out there. EPIRB, well, that makes security sense. A second Genoa, I need 2 for goose wing downwind sailing. A spinnaker pole for one of the jennies. I'll use the main boom to bear out the other one. A manual freshwater galley pump, 4 drinking containers. You can live without food for 10 days, but water only about a couple of days in the tropics. Marina fees to the departure point, and the total cost of that lot is anything up to £10,000 to £12,000. I will need to get Golden Haze ready to leave for the Canaries or Cape Verdes by mid-November, December. I think I'll sail her down during the summer to Tangier, possibly Gibraltar, and leave her there until I'm ready to depart for the Canaries. The attraction of both Tangiers and Gib is that they're not part of the EU, so my allowance of 90 days in Europe won't be affected, and I won't have to enter Europe again until I get down to the Canary Islands. Back to the list. Self-steering gear. The problem with a crew of 3 is it's really not practical to hand steer day and night all the way across, so some sort of autopilot is essential. In the past, I've owned an Ares, a wind pilot and a hydrovane, and of the 3, the hydrovane, I have to say, was by far the best, as it is a standalone unit. It doesn't need lines going back to a drum on the wheel to control the boat's direction, as do the other 2 systems. The downside is that it's going to cost around £4,500, which is around £1,500 more than a wind pilot, which knocks out at around £3,000. An Ares is nearly £4,000, and that works best with tiller-steered boats anyway. There are several other types on the market, and I think the lowest price I've ever seen is around £2,500. But I can only talk from personal experience and say that with my hydrovane, I have sailed some 35,000 miles, and it was very, very good at what it had to do. Alternatively, I can upgrade my present Raymarine wheel autopilot, the existing one's feeling its age and I doubt would last the course, and a new Raymarine Evolution wheel pilot is only £1,600. But of course it needs amps to run it, and it appears it needs around 1.5 to 3 amps an hour to work. So a generator is probably the answer, and that's what all single-handed, non-stop round-the-world racers have on board. They've all got big generators and fuel tanks. A baby Honda EU10 generator has the output of 8 amps, consuming 0.58 of a litre an hour. It costs about £900, and it could be stored in my cockpit locker. I think it would probably need 16 to 18 gallons of petrol, carried in jerry jugs on the deck, at a cost of say £120. So the total cost of going the electric autopilot route with the generator would be say £2,600. Yes, I could just run the main engine under load to charge the batteries, but I'm not sure that the alternator would put out as much power as the Honda, and I would need a considerable amount of extra diesel fuel, more than I could safely carry in jerry jugs or tied to the guardrail, I think. So the choice is between the relatively hassle-free wind pilot or hydrovane, or just a little less, a Raymarine wind pilot and a generator with a load of jerry jugs tied to the guardrail on the deck. The next issue is generating enough amps to power the electrical instruments, the navigation lights and the domestic lighting, and provide backup for the Honda generator if that were the decision. There's no room on deck of Golden Haze for solar panels, so mounting them on the Bimini is probably the answer. There's a company in the UK called Marlec who sell Sunwear textile solar panels, and a 120 watt flexible solar panel to go on top of the Bimini would cost just over £1,000. I'd need some cable, a through deck electric wire fitting, plus I think I would really need a controller so as not to fry the batteries, and I'd probably need a proper battery monitor so I know what's going on. I'd need to get a sail maker to adapt the Bimini to fix the removable solar panel on the top of it, and so all that's going to cost around another £1,500, I think, whatever happens. The third domestic battery really is needed because it's just so much easier to get amps into a bigger battery bank, and it's easier to store them as well. So that's not a mega cost, I don't know, say £300. I think I can fiberglass in fittings to hold the new battery in place under my bunk, which happens to be beside the engine and the existing battery compartment, so the cable run wouldn't be too long. The next big bucks is communications. And since making the Atlantic Crossing Guide video and writing the book, I've done some serious thinking about that issue. I've done all my blue water sailing with an ICOM SSB on board, and I've personally, myself, installed 3 of them, so clearly I really rate them. But it's a huge expense. The equipment needs a large antenna tuner, and you need to cut into the backstay to insert insulators. It all requires quite a lot of space in an already crowded chart table area, as well as this long, expensive antenna cable run. The basic cost is going to be in the area of £3,600, plus the insulators and the cable for the to run from the antenna tuner to the set. And so it tops out at, say, £4,000. The alternative is a sat phone like Iridium Go in its marine form. Now, I've never used one, and so all the info I have is based solely on what other people have told me and my own research. For a simple Atlantic crossing, it looks to me like the marine version of Iridium Go, including, say, the Predict Wind weather system, with the antenna mounted on the back rail and several SIM cards for airtime, is going to be around £2,000. And I think this is probably the way to go, unless you intend sailing around the world, in which case a single sideband is far better. But I think an Iridium Go set is what I'll get rather than another single sideband. An EPIRB out in the Atlantic is probably sensible, although 93% of all emergency calls generated by this system are false alarms, and I doubt any merchant ship in the world is going to alter course to investigate an EPIRB emergency signal. However, the position they provide after the alarm has been raised by either single sideband or a sat phone will be useful. So that's another 500 quid out the window. In order to start the transatlantic course, I've got to get the boat south from the English Channel down to the Cape Verdes or Canary Islands. And for that I need the Navionics chart number 46, and that's a further £260. Out in the Atlantic, I'll just use my paper chart and I'll plot the noon position daily on it, just in case. All my long distance sailing has been done with the chart plotter switched off and a small standalone GPS, a Garmin 152, fixed to the steering wheel pedestal. And although it is a discontinued line, the Garmin 152 is a superb piece of kit. Very low power demand, built-in antenna, runs off the boat battery, and it shows you on a little screen the way to steer to get back on course, the time and distance to destination, as well as lat long and all the other stuff that a GPS should do, all for a mere £250. Now, there are others in the Garmin range which have replaced it. They're not quite so nice, the screen isn't so big, but they're usable. So if I can't find a 152 on eBay, I'll get one of those. A spinnaker pole to bear out the jenny sailing downwind in the trades, whilst using the main boom to bear out the second jenny and keeping the mainsail furled. The cost of a new pole is going to be around £400. And a second jenny. I've been looking around the second-hand market, and I've sent out a few emails to dealers, people who have second-hand sales, with absolutely no response. Now, originally I thought I could find an old one for around £400, because the cost of a new one from, say, Crusaders is £1,200. I guess I may have to budget £500 or £600 for a second-hand jenny to be realistic. And last but not least, the manual galley freshwater hand pump. I ran out of water once crossing Biscay. One of the crew decided to take a shower, and I'd forgotten to fill the water tanks in Dartmouth. 2 days away from Bayonne, the tank ran dry. Just a couple of bottles of Schweppes and the juice in tin fruit cans were all the liquids that were left on board. Since then, I've always switched off the electric freshwater pump whilst on passage, and I issue each crew member 3 litres of water a day in those little, 1 litre water bottles for washing and for personal drinking, over and above what happens in sort of cooking and out of the galley. Now, the tank of Golden Haze, the water tank of Golden Haze, holds 160 litres. So theoretically, there's enough water to get a crew of 3 to Martinique. But I think 3 or 4 small jerry jugs of drinking water tied to the guardrail would be prudent. And maybe some bottles of, plastic bottles of water, fresh water amongst the grocery supplies. So the pump, including fittings, going to cost around £150, and with the drinking water jerry jugs, I don't know, total of £200. And that's it, I think, apart from the cost of getting Golden Haze south in easy stages to Tangiers or Gibraltar. Not so much the fuel, but generally the price of marinas at £30 a night. From the UK to the Med, I'm going to use my book, The Gentle Sailing Route to the Med, as that does it in really easy stages, and I'm going to be single-handed. It's going to take me about a month, so 30 days at £30 a night in marinas is going to be, I don't know, £1,000, and then a bit of time in Tangiers before setting off for the Canaries and Mindelo, ready to make the departure. So without fuel, I reckon just the cost of repositioning her to depart on the transatlantic is probably £1,500. I've not added any professional labour costs for fitting any of the items, nor for fuel getting her there. So we all know what happens with budgets. It's always going to be more than anticipated. Anyway, here's my list of essentials again, with the prices added. Self-steering equipment, $4,500, solar panels, $1,500, extra battery, $300, long-range communications, $2,000, Navionics chart down to the Cape Verdes, $250, standalone GPS, $250, EPIRB, $500, second Jenny, $600, spinnaker pole 400, manual freshwater galley pump 200, drinking water containers 50 quid, marina fees to departure point £1,500. As you can see, it all comes out at around £12,000. Okay, it's fair enough to say the self-steering gear option could be a cheaper wind vane or go down the generator route, and that would save a couple of grand. I don't have to make the decision for a while yet, and who knows what's going to happen to world shipping cargo rates between now and November. They could go way up or way down. So I'm still very undecided. I'm sure there are a lot of opinions as to which option I should take, and I have to confess the gentle, easy way is what I normally opt for. I don't particularly need the challenge of sailing the Atlantic, and I don't particularly want to bedeck Golden Haze with a load of gear that's only going to be used really for 17 days. But it could be fun, it could be nice to do. Yeah, I don't know. If you've ever wondered what blue water cruising is really like, then I suggest you read this book called One Girl, One Dream by a young lady called Laura Decker, who sailed single-handed around the world when she was only a teenager. She absolutely captures the very essence of the sailing lifestyle. What it's like out at sea for long periods, the relationship with the wet blue-green stuff, boats, and the wonderful camaraderie, social life of this sailing subculture. I've been reading it whilst I've been making this video, and frankly it brought tears to my eyes remembering all the places, people and good times I've had out there. I finished it last night, and it's the best sailing book I've ever read. Fair winds, safe landfalls. See you next time, I hope, from the deck of Golden Haze. Bye now. So far, French Canal route to the Mediterranean has sold over 2,700 copies. And the Gentle Sailing Guide to the Mediterranean, that's down the outside coast, has also sold over 1,850 copies so far. If you want a copy of any of my sailing books, then they're available as instant downloads from gentlesailing.com, all one word. Or if you want my articles and descriptions about sailing, you'll find them at michaelbryant.com.